Good afternoon. Well, good to see you guys this Sunday afternoon. Who took notice? One of the articles on the homepage. Hopefully you did. It's a huge and serious topic. But I'll tell you what, I have to admit, things have altered far faster than even what I thought. They really have. So, guys, we have mountains of data to cover near the end of this week. Mountains of actual data. In fact, it's something I've never done here at COT before. I'll be doing near the close of the week. That means you guys are going to be bombarded. This time we have to go over facts. You guys have to see the whole picture. Now, the article states, just in case it's not clear, that our North Pole has been moving far faster than anybody ever thought, than anybody suspected, predicted, forecasted. It's already exceeded model tolerances. Due to that, so is the equator. The equator is moving. And to be blunt with you, that means the equator is going to move north. 1,290 miles, to be exact. That's the estimation right now. That can happen in as little time, right? It's about we're putting that in a gap right now about 1.5 years. That means between that time, the equator is going to be in Kentucky. That's what that means. Kentucky. Now, I hope you guys realize if the equator is in Kentucky, what happens to everything south of the equator and everything north of the equator? This is something that I don't believe anybody counted on. Right? Really don't believe that. And if we get geolocked to a larger object out there, we're really going to stay that way for a long time, right? Just to keep the harm involved. Now, there's some dynamics we have to cover, right? And a lot of data. Somebody said North Pole had stopped for a bit of thing. No, it started moving actually back in 2007 is when all that data was, in 2006, when the data was being collected and monitored and watched. But all of a sudden, as of this year, last year, it's been on the move, right? So it has already drifted too far. One of the hard parts is that it's very difficult for anybody to tell what the tilt of the Earth is. It's very difficult, right? And they have to rely upon those who have reference equipment to get the reference for that. We are out of sync. Let's put it that way. It's bound to get a lot worse. We're looking for an abrupt movement. See, no one ever thought that the North Pole could move at the speed it moved. No one ever thought it could cover the distance it covered in a very short time, in about a 2-month time period. No one ever thought that. This is something abrupt that no one felt, and that's part of the problem. The Earth will do a physical reorientation to its axis always, right? And these magnetic forces, we may as well say, or inertia forces, are not going to be very forgiving. Right? They're not going to be forgiving. Anyway, our weather patterns are going to take a big hit on this. That really means if the equator, or say if it were in Texas, you guys do understand that the Mississippi would evaporate. You know that, right? It would boil away. Coastlines on the east and west coast would boil away. You guys understand that? That big wall of water would consume all the southern states, all of them, because the oceans would readjust according to the inertia of the planet's rotation. So that means water levels will abruptly start to shift. Abruptly. And it's something that people will just have to ride out. Now, here's the ironic part. Can you imagine And it will happen just like this. You'll probably get a report of evacuations in certain areas. Possibly you'll live in one of those areas and you may have 60 days to move north, to relocate, to move north. Because the key would be to stay away from the water band that goes around the earth. You would see it coming slowly. I mean, slowly but surely it would come, right? So with the hot temperatures. You're looking at temperatures the USA has never seen before. Not in living history. All right? Not in our history. We've never seen that before. Tropical and arid regions, reversing, changing, this, that, and the other. So you're looking at a total change of all topology, essentially, with the change of a tilt. Now, this is not theoretical. That's the problem. This is happening. This is happening, right? This is happening already. In fact, the equator in that big wall of water around the equator of the Earth has already shifted. It's shifted, right? And I'm gonna be careful because I want you guys to see the absolutes of data, the absolute, not some theoretical nonsense, but the absolutes, because this is a problem, a big problem. As a consequence of these problems, that means everybody who knows about this, they're going to start making moves. Well, let's change that. They already started making moves, and they're going to continue to make those moves, right? Because our weather patterns all over the earth are going to shift rapidly. Rapidly. And there's nothing anybody can do about this. This is one of those effects that we're going through in these times, through an adjustment, you could say, of our entire solar system. It's going to be a bit chaotic for a bit. And this is something we're going to have to get used to. Again, this is by no means theoretical. This is not a topic that's going to go away. This is unexpected. This is not something everybody was looking forward to. This is nothing anybody predicted. And that's why it's just one of those things. It was, I guess you could say people thought about it, right? But the speed at which this is happening is going to cause some pretty big problems. Now, you can alert everybody about this. I don't know if they will or not. I would say as they get closer to a time, they're going to have to come up with something to get people to shift from where they are. They're going to have some sort of an excuse to get you to move from where you are north. That's the only way to get people, away from that water band, unless people start to go far south right now. But they're going to have to come up with something because they don't want the entire human populace to go, right? There will be displacement. It's not like the movies. It's nothing like the movies. None of this is like any movie. It's not like a movie. So, but you will have to get large portions of the populace to move, right? So that means, hear me on this, something will have to happen where all those states, Texas, all those states below a specific line are going to have to adjust. I do not know what they're going to tell them. I can suspect what they may tell them. But you're looking at some very real circumstances coming up. And hopefully you guys, listen, nobody should don't become frightened about this. It is unexpected, yes, because it's not discussed directly. But we'll certainly feel the outcome of this shortly. We have no choice, which means Canada is going to get some company. So I'm hoping we do not go to war, right? I'm hoping we don't go to war. Again, let me explain this to you guys. The equator is going to move 1,290 miles. That's the estimate. It's going to move north. So that puts it right across Kentucky and Tennessee. The equator. Okay? That's where it puts it. That means all the weather in the USA is going to be altered. All of it. All of it. We're just going to live and see how this thing turns out. I suspect that it's going to cause many to do a double take about the times we live in. It's going to cost a lot of money. It will be a national crisis, I guess you could say. Right? And it's just something we're going to have to deal with. Just going to have to deal with that. Get used to it. And that's only one of a few issues. But listen, we live in a time right now where we need lots of data. Lots of data. So, I hope you guys don't mind official sources working in tandem to show you this data. Because it's not all, this data is coming from all over the place, right? It is surprising. It's unexpected, very unexpected thing, but and people are scrambling right now. They need to figure this out. Right now, they're scrambling to figure this out. And they have dumped, I was shocked at how much money they sunk into this, how many people they're bringing on board to see what can be done, if anything can be done, as far as people are concerned. So relocation, some sort of relocation event is going to have to take place. That means something along these southern states, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all those places. Something will have to happen because that's going to be wherever the equator is, that's a dead zone. Nobody can live on the equator. You can't live on the equator. It's too hot. You guys do realize that, right? It also means due to a wobbly tilt, it really brings to light things in the Middle East that the Lord was, for example, remember when Jesus said, pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath? Now, why would he make that comment about the winter, right? At a very specific time, period. In the Middle East, they have winters there. They're somewhat rough, but they're not that bad, right? Unless these patterns, if they start to shift, they could see Arctic temperatures during the winter. They could see that. Nobody here is set up to deal with super hot temperatures and a water rise. Now, this brings up something else. That means not every place is going to flood. In fact, some places that have water right now, they won't have water when this happens. This will disrupt how it rains. It will, because it does not rain on the equator. It does not rain, right? And it's going to be a lot to comb through. I mean, a whole lot to comb through. There's so much data on this. Actual data, not theoretical data, not calculations, actual data. You need to see what actually happened. You need to see the dates at which they happened and the time spans in between the movements of the poles magnetically. You need to see that. And some of the physical effects that are now taking place. Nobody could ignore we live in a very strange time. The month of May last month was the hottest month on record ever. The hottest one. This year, right? Somebody said naval map, Mike, well, that was back then. Listen, things are progressive. So any maps they made back then, right? I'd be like, besides prophecy, if the Navy developed a map back then, hear me on this, they made that map based on data that was available back then, right? Many things have changed since back then, which means if they have a different map now, this will change all maps, everything. This is going to change everything. But if they made a map back then, they didn't have the data they're dealing with now. And I know for a fact the Navy has a different, the map has a name. I'm not going to use that name, but they have a different projection to what they believe water levels will be. Starting, already, this process has already begun according to them. They have a different map. That map has been changing over the course of years. What happened was that map got out. And when the map got out, right, the data kept pouring in. Some of that data has been refined. Some of those areas have been altered and changed. But we've gone through more changes. See, when you have maps based on data, you can only base that on data that you have available. We have a lot more data available. Conditions have changed. And the closer we get to a time of any event, the more accurate you can be about that data. So the more refined those maps will be. So which means that map from the Navy is outdated. It's just simply outdated. And that's not going to serve a person well. It is not. It's outdated. There have been a lot of changes since then, right? There's a difference in the atmosphere since then. There's a difference in the sun since then. There's a difference in the earth since then, right? And so everything has been altered. So that map is, it used to stand back then, right? But there's no way that can be accurate now. One of the reasons is, since the equator is going to move, you're looking at the USA tilted, essentially tilted, which means part of the USA is going to be submerged anyway, but not like that map. And it's not based on topology, right? We even have a change in topology here. There have been mountain ranges that have altered their altitude because of underground magma. So, things change. Things change. The only thing that does not change is prophecy. God's prophecies, not man's prophecies, God's prophecies. His prophecies do not change. And so anybody who, bases their information on prophecy, they're going to be all right. They may not be totally accurate, but they're going to be all right. Right? The Lord told us. That's why he didn't give us specifics in the data. He didn't give us specifics in the data. He didn't do that. The Lord knows exactly what will happen, right? And so we do well to make sure that we always take heed to that. If you want to really be prepared for all these things, try not to anticipate anything, right? Get to know prophecy. Understand prophecy. Don't solve it. Don't solve prophecy. Just make sure you go over what it says. Make sure you're acquainted with what it says. God didn't put us here to solve prophecy. Prophecy is to help us, right? It's not a game where we go out and solve it. That's not what it is. It is to help us. It becomes a guide during the times when things do take place. It also serves as a motivation and a truth as to what God will do. God's telling us what he will do at specific intervals, right? So we do well to pay attention to that. Now, as far as the earth is concerned, and things that happen to the earth, we've gone through so many things. Was Mount St. Helens in prophecy? Was it? Was World War I and II in prophecy? To a degree they were, right? Humanity named those times, by the way. Our Father's not looking at time like we would think about time. What happened to the Jews? Was that in prophecy? You better believe it's in prophecy. One of the problems is people tend to make prophecy what they want it to be. We must never do that. As people who believe in Christ, it should be enough for us that our Savior is bringing about these changes, not the devil. Our Savior is. That's why I don't naturally give credit I don't give credit to HARP, but I don't give credit to all these other things that you guys may or may not know about. I don't give that. I don't do that. I give credit to the Most High. And if the Lord said that we're going to have storm and tempest, if the Lord said nations are going to be in distress with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring, I'm not going to sit there and give credit to mankind like he just thought something up. No. There are many different methods by which things can happen. It's important for us to know that they do happen so that we're not uprooted. If God gave us something anyway, that is to keep us, not to lose us. Right? It's not to lose us. It's to keep us. And concerning these awful times like the ones we're about to go through, well, we knew they were coming. We didn't know exactly all the details, right? The methods as to how. But we know they will be fulfilled. We know that. We're going to be going over a lot of information at the end of this week, at the close of this week, guys. It really is a lot of data. It It is a lot of data. And so the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of that data, we have to go through too. I will be presenting quite a bit of it. I want you guys to really understand the situation so that you can see for yourselves what's happening. Now, from that, you'll have a pretty good forecast pertaining to events here on the earth, dealing with the climate in that respect. You'll have a good handle on that. So it's not going to be some big surprise when these things do take place. Now, here's the other thing. Most people get scared of times like these because they truly have a struggle letting go of stuff. Throughout these storms, people died because they did not want to leave. They couldn't leave their possessions. They couldn't do it. So I'm going to ask you guys something. If you are attached to your possessions, now is a good time to really think about not being attached. You got to face that someday. Some people have pictures on their walls, right? And I'm telling you now, if something bad were to happen, they would risk their lives to go back and get pictures off the wall. They would. Because that's the only way they've ever been taught to keep somebody's memory alive. The only way. They would go back and kill themselves and other people for it. They would. Right? That's no good to be that way. So in that case, we have to focus on some truth factors here. A picture is not going to keep a person alive. And some people have not yet gone through the process to realize the reality of what they live in. Those people they're not in this realm anymore. They still exist. They did not die, right? But they're not in this realm anymore. And if they could speak to you, they would probably tell you to stop thinking about them and to go forward with Christ. They would. But we have some true preparations to make. It's got a lot of people nervous. So I'm giving you guys this stuff because you know they're scrambling right now, but just speaking hypothetically. If this is absolutely true, all the adjustments begin right now. All of them. Do you hear me? All of them. So don't be shocked and surprised as far as what you see to get people out of certain areas. Don't be surprised. Somebody said, what's going to happen in North Canada? Everybody's going to have, I do have an idea, but I'm going to save that for the data. We're going to let you see the data first, the actual data first, so that you can see it for yourselves. This is a subject that probably is not a good idea for anybody to start speaking about this subject off the hip. And the reason why is because anytime you're dealing with a subject where large amounts of people are not going to make it, you do not want to shoot from the hip. And when it becomes real, when things begin to happen and it becomes real, those who know about it, you're still going to get nervous. You're going to get nervous because you'll know what's happening. You can't go out there and be an advocate to make everybody know what's happening. You can't do that. And you can speak to people by way of truth, but everybody does not receive information the same way. And if you start talking in all facts, if you start talking about facts, well, then that's a different story. That will really scare people. Unfortunately, in this case, we have to go over all the data, and that'll be later this week. At the end of this week, at the close of this week, we'll begin that process. Not before. It is a touchy subject. It takes a lot of responsibility going forward. It is, nobody should use this subject for points and views and status. Don't do that, because death is going to be a result of this one. So the more you know, the more you have a handle on this situation, the better. Okay, the better. But if I were you guys, I would not advertise for yourselves. Go out there and talk about this subject because you don't have the data yet. You just don't have the data. You cannot assure anybody of anything. You don't have the data. And that data is going to be carefully monitored. Too many things are happening at one time. And this is one of those breakneck subjects. People are scrambling right now. It is a surprise. It's a shocker. But there it is. To them it is. To them it is. Due to the nature of it. Right? Because suppose, for example, the North Pole, right? It moves some, I'm not going to tell you how many miles, but you'll see that in the data. It was an impossible move, and it did actually move that much, and it caused a physical effect. If the equator does this, which it will, it's going to cause a physical effect due to inertia, the rotation of this planet. When that takes place, some people are not going to have a warning. They won't. These things are not happening by our, clock. They're not. They're not happening by nobody's formula contracted either, because of the forces that are involved are somewhat unbalanced. So some of the movements are chaotic and unpredictable, which makes it even worse. Keep in mind you're dealing with a wall of water that is extremely high at the equator, right? It's extremely high. If you had a ball with tassels hanging on the outsides, right, and you rotated that ball, those tassels are going to start shooting straight out because of inertia. Right? What's in motion tends to stay in motion, so they get repelled outward. The water on the Earth is the exact same way. When you look at the Earth from a distance, it is not a big round ball. It is not. It's an oval, right? When you see it from a distance, it is an oval. It is quite overwhelmingly big, and it's oval. It is not a ball. That's not what it is. But that oval contains a lot of water. Most of the water of the oceans is going towards that direction of the equator, in which it builds up and is caused this big water wall to go around the Earth. That water wall is going to move as the equator moves, right? As that line where the inertia is, as it moves, and it's going north. It's going to shoot north. On one side of the Earth, right? It's going to shoot north. In other words, the Earth is going to tilt because of this. Once this happens, well then, inertia takes its toll, and then some places that had water will have none, and some places that had no water, they're going to get a lot of water. The data is going to be a necessity on this. The good data, the actual data, people are actually working from. And from there, you experts in these subjects, after you get the data, it's up to you what you do with it. After you get the data. But I wouldn't speculate before that data hits. Okay? I wouldn't speculate anything. It is not a good situation. It is a critical situation. Something unavoidable. Some people are disheartened by this. You're going to notice that. You're going to notice that some people are very disheartened by this. Very disheartened. Somebody said, where's the data? It's all over the Earth. It's with NOAA, it's with NASA, it's with all those who have been a part of tracking. This data is not centralized to any one agency. No. Something happened. So that once we start disclosing the whole thing, you'll see it. But it is not for the public yet, which is why I had to be careful on how I'm doing this. I want you guys to understand this situation is not a joke. It is by no means a joke. It's not something to scare people. It's not something to motivate people. But you need to know about it. Because you can't tell anybody something like this, knowing the implications of it. You can't do that. And with the time interval involved, it is shocking. It shocked everybody. So I'm sure you're going to hear a whole lot more about this later on after the fact. But I have to give you guys the data, the absolute data. You have to see this so that you will have an understanding, so that nobody goes, you don't want to make it more than what it is. You certainly do not want to underrate it, because this is going to cause pretty big problems. But no one should be shocked and surprised. No one who believes in Christ. See, we all knew these times and these uncertainties would come. We already knew that. There are no guarantees on the stability of the earth. Right? There are no guarantees. And so you guys should be acquainted with this. Revelation is going to become very real for a lot of people. That's going to cause a problem, because you're about to see the true nature, folks. When they find out that their whole livelihood is things could really abruptly change. When they find that out, you're going to find out what the true nature is. People like me, until the last day, we're going full steam. But I want you guys to be aware of this. Don't become nervous about it. Right? Nothing has been, we don't have that data yet. We haven't put it out there yet. I haven't put it out there yet. And I have a lot of it, just my little part. I have a lot of data. I have a couple of notebooks of data, you could say. But everybody's going to be very methodical and responsible with this. This is not one of those problems that is a fascination. This is a problem. An issue. Nobody can size it. It's kind of like some of these eruptions that we're having in some of the cities that are in trouble. Somebody said the spiders already knew. Yeah, they're migrating big time. In fact, there are 17 species of spiders that have come to the USA in 2024 that were never here before. They are on the move big time. They're on the move. They're moving north. Everything is moving north. Bugs are moving north. Spiders that live in certain climates are moving north. They're very sensitive to the climate. And there is possibility they can feel it changing in their regions. Right? Like in Peru, it's a known fact in Peru, the temperatures there have begun to alter. So has humidity. They have this, they have a constant humidity average that it's just totally different than what it used to be. Everything concerning weather is shifting north, but now we know why. Because they didn't share. See, a lot of people don't talk about the North Pole and the magnetic North Pole they used to back in 2012, 13, and 14. You guys remember that? And they stopped talking about it. No information about the North Pole. Well, you're going to find out why. You're going to find out why it abruptly halted. And then the information, if you go to the internet right now and really start citing your sources, you're going to find that the information is very old. All the information they're using is old, right? Because they come up where the actual magnetic north is. And then you do the little formula with the physical effect on the north. You have to do that from space. You have to have cooperation from those who have access to space. You have to see the earth in a totally different light from many different spectrums. You have to see beyond the terrain and all these things to see the absolute movements of the earth. And they have to be, you have to calculate that precisely. The only way that can be done is with precision equipment. Not just one satellite, but let's just say all the GPS satellites, right? All the geo-tracking advancements and some other names, those satellites. I don't want to get into that because people start talking about geoengineering, so I'm going to leave that alone. But you have to track the earth and the surface of the earth and the inside of the earth. And you have to have an external view from that. And you have to do that all around the earth, all at the same time. So that means all satellites working at the same time to get the exact same image, a positive image and a negative image, top down, right? Bottom up, you have to get those images. Compile that data to see how the earth is moving in the first place. But there are small telltale signs of this all around you. If you pay attention, you'll notice. And then when rivers begin to reverse their direction, that's really going to let you know that we have a different set of inertia taking place. Right? Now, because of this, I'll tell you some of the, because of this, I expect some of the ice melts that were to take another year to take only 3 more months. That's what I expect. I expect most things to be compressed that much. So instead of a year, you're looking at a 90-day interval for that to happen. So these things people have been waiting on, and they say, well, they could hit, another 10 years from now. I expect those things to happen by at least the beginning of next year. Because things have absolutely sped up in what's happening. But again, at the close of this week, we'll go over the data so that you guys can see it yourselves. And for those of you who really study these things, keep the data. And if you don't mind, we'll coordinate some things. Right? Because your opinion, your spiritual opinion, and your opinion is highly valued. Because we need to discuss some of the more academic aspects to this subject. And we have to do that in a very responsible way. So hopefully, when you get the data, you will be up for that, willing for that. Because, folks, if the timeline is shorter, then if the timeline is right around the corner, we can't entrust anybody else to warn anybody. And we can't just burst out there on the stage and say the world is coming to the sky is falling. In 90 days, you can't say that. We're going to have to do that in a responsible way, very respectful way, and present it, right? We're going to have to present it. We're going to have to use a world standard to present it. In other words, with all the data, with all the forms, everything. So we can do that. We can put that out there. That way we have a conclusion that will turn into an advisement. We will have served our purpose on this. And people are just, I hope you guys are doing okay, though. Hope you're doing okay. No, I didn't say 90 days from now, let's start. Oh, also something else. I want to tell you guys something else. Try not to proceed this subject in any way. I've noticed sometimes when I'm talking, right, some people take sound bites. You can't do that when I'm talking. It's not going to work out for you too well. If you get this information wrong, the world will crucify you, and it will be your fault. I'm not going to get the information wrong because I have to present all data on this. This is going to be all data. All data, okay? If lives are going to be lost, we cannot make a mistake in the presentation of data. That means no guessing, no theories, just data. And we'll go over the data points us to, because that's a heavy responsibility. It is. It's heavy. And I'm just thankful I know about it, that I'm able to share that with some of you guys who will then help me refine that for a larger group. Okay, but we have to go with just data, just data, just data. Okay? Just in case you haven't noticed, I need to say this, but, those trusted channels in this world have never warned anybody of anything that killed them. They never did. They never did. If they can't take credit for something, if they cannot control something, you're not going to get that announcement. You're not. So, for a time it's going to be in the Christian community. But I would ask that all of you be responsible with the information. I want you to know today so you know what to expect at the close of this week so we can hit the ground running. But this is one of those surprise problems. It has a lot of people stumped. It does. I mean, they're stumped. They are. It is not it's not one of those problems that can be a 50-50 chance. That's not what this is. This is something far different. Right? Something very different. Very different. So, at the close of the week, we'll start covering that. So all of you who are working those areas, be ready for that, okay? We'll start disclosing information on that. Do our best in that. Guys, I'm going to be back in a few minutes right here at COT. Right? There's something else I need to tell you guys, man. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, everybody. Boy, do we live in odd times, huh? Finally, I kept saying yesterday, well, we finally made it. We're finally at that time. I kept going through my head over and over again. Finally, at that time. So, guys, look for that at the close of the week and throughout the week. I'm going to update materials to match that. Okay, we get that matched. This is going to take, hopefully, this weekend, we go forward with very responsibly. This is going to become a touchy subject. In a touchy subject. So if you guys understand the gravity of it, and this is all interior. This is what's going to happen inside the earth. So here we are. Somebody said, should I still pay your taxes? Yes, you go forward as normal. Just because you hear of a tornado warning, right, does not mean you stop living. Your Father's in control. Our Father's in control. There are oftentimes tornadoes come and hit nothing at all. Remember that, okay? Things may get bad. They may get bad. But even still, that doesn't mean you'll be uprooted. See, the truth is, the estimation is 1,290 miles north. The truth is, that's the estimation. The truth is, nobody knows how far it'll actually go. Nobody knows. You're dealing with forces that do what they want to do. You cannot predict these forces. Just like the North Pole and the movement of the North Pole. They couldn't predict that. They can only track that. These things have to be tracked. Prediction is no good. Right? You can estimate based upon the data you have at that very moment. That data changes week to week, and we're going to have to stay on top of it. We're going to have to stay on top of it. So, if you know about it, right, one of the key reasons is not to know about the doom of part of the USA or the doom of some other countries. That's not the point. The point is that you're aware of what's happening in your environment so that you can understand why people may do what they do, right? For example, if they come up with some excuse saying that, people have to leave a certain state because of poison, right? And then come to find out other states have that same mandate. Well, you'll know something is beyond the poison, okay? Something. There'll be some indicators for this. And we're going to have to watch those indicators very closely. Very closely. This has happened before. Just so this has happened before. The equator has not always been where it is. Now, a lot of people they don't realize that. There was a time where the equator went right through the North Pole. You guys do know that, right? That happened more than a few times. Now, when you start putting all this data together, it means that the life we're living right now is indeed a beautiful one, but it's not promised to stay this way. And as believers in Christ, we have gotten so used to taking what the Lord has blessed us with for granted. Do you know why? Because in truth, we're like spoiled children. We truly believe that we're not supposed to have storms. When a hurricane comes, tornadoes come, what do? We get upset. We start blaming, HAARP did it or something like that, because people really believe they're supposed to have good conditions, and that's it. That's what they honestly believe. spoiled. You know what the truth is? If we do have a good day, it's because of our Father. If we keep our homes overnight, it's because of our Father. That's why. See, we have a lot to be thankful for, but that's not how people are thinking. We're spoiled. We act like we're supposed to have everything we want to have. And when we don't get it, that's the time when we pray. We have forgotten that through God's grace and mercy, he staves off some of these mishaps. If his grace and mercy were not upon us right now, how could we live and survive? You would have a bad day. I would have a bad day. None of us would be able to brag, and we've forgotten about that. The Lord gives us stability. Like your jobs, your employment, your income. Somebody was talking the other day, and they were talking about their local church and giving to their local church. You know, I was just thinking in my head, wait a minute, are people not? Do they not even believe it is God Almighty who enables them to work in the first place? Without him, everything would go wrong in your life. Your life would be chaos. God's presence is the absence of chaos. You're the only reason, and in fact, listen to this, because of his goodness and because of his order, because he is light, darkness is chaos, because of his order, you're able to complain. Do you hear me? And that's a sad thing. You live in his order, in his peace, and we complain, as though we're supposed to have good all the time. No. If without his light, we would be in instant chaos. Do you guys understand that? Even the evil people out there can be evil because of his goodness. If not for his goodness, they would perish, each and every single last one of them. There is no room to complain in torment. He's the reason we don't have torment. There's no guarantee on the rest of this day. And if we do live out the rest of this day, it is by his grace and mercy. Why do we take that for granted? As though somehow we're entitled to it. As though the earth is on automatic and he has nothing to do with it. Why do we continue to do that? And when it comes to a time where he starts to withdraw his grace and mercy and everything starts to go wrong, then we act shocked. Like it's some strange, weird thing. These days, they're going to remind people these troubles are necessary. They really are. Think of a time in your life, in your own personal life, when things were not bad, but then life became routine, so routine, you got sick of it. How many people, in all honesty, you had a routine going in your life, but your life was lifeless? How many people began to complain, things felt dead and everything else, and then all of a sudden, your world is turned upside down. Everything goes wrong. In the middle of your life going wrong, you remember the times of peace, and you say, wow, I had it good back then, didn't I? But then, listen to this, everything goes wrong, you start to remember this, and then all of a sudden the trouble goes away, and the first thing you do is say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. You're so thankful. Give it another week. And it's almost as if you never went through a bad time in the first place. Give it 2 weeks, and we start complaining again. Give it 3 weeks, and we start pointing out the flaws on each other. Why do we continue to do that? Why do we even need a reminder that this day is a blessing? This day is really a blessing. Those of you who have been in combat, when you were in the middle of combat, didn't you desire peace? Did it ever go through you to say, I want nothing to do with violence, but I'm out of here. I know people with PTSD who have long forgotten that. That's one of the talks I have with people with PTSD. I will ask them, don't you remember in the middle of combat you said you wanted peace? And they'll say, yes. And I said, put yourself back there when everything was going wrong, when it was chaotic, when there was no guarantee that you would live another day. Yeah, you had to do bad things, so did everybody else, but you were saying to yourself, I want peace and I want nothing to do with violence. And as soon as everything was done, when the war was finished, when the conflict was over, you start thinking about your acts. You start thinking about the pressure. You start thinking about what people did to you or what they did not do to you. You start thinking about what you had to do to everybody else, and you invite chaos in your life instead of peace. You know what chaos is. Why would you ever call for chaos? Why do you want an answer from chaos? Chaos is chaos. It has no answers. The peace you wanted and desired, you can have it. It's right there in front of you. All you have to do is take hold of it and leave the chaos alone. Don't try to understand chaos. Chaos is chaos. So call it as such, and then turn your back on chaos and walk forward into peace. Stay away from violence. Continue to walk forward into peace. So you have a lot of people with PTSD that recreate the chaos, but they don't know they're recreating it because they don't think like that. They're not thinking like that. I should have PTSD, but I do not. And of all the people I've worked with, they find out it's a simple solution. And people get mad at me all the time, but the truth is, all that medication and all the talks and everything else, all it does is allow a person to vent. When you remind them about the peace they wanted in the middle of that chaos, when you remind them, if you were in a car accident and you remember that car accident, and you remember saying, Lord, save me from this car accident, deliver me from this chaos, and you were delivered and you recovered. But if you forget the core moment of that trauma, you'll recreate chaos again and again and again. People without PTSD, they create trauma themselves. They create chaos and trauma. Why? Because they've forgotten that today, if they have a good day, if they have a peaceful day, it is the Lord that withholds chaos from them. They are living in his light. It is by his light they see. It is by his light they move, breathe, and operate. It is by his light they're able to complain in the first place, because he can remove all those abilities. You can be placed in a chaos or into darkness, but you're not. Why do we do that, though? We get put in a peaceful situation, we have our peace back, and then we create chaos. You sit in your houses, everything is done, there's nothing to do, everybody's content, and then all of a sudden, somebody in the house thinks up some wild idea to put everybody to work in the house in a very relaxing moment in the house. Why do they do that? Everything will be done, and somebody will say, hey, let's go paint this wall. Why? Because that person has no peace. And they destroy it for everybody else. Why do we do that? Why? See, I don't know about you, but I take note of the smallest things. Do you know why? Because I'm thankful for every day that I'm not in the middle of chaos. I know what chaos is. I know what darkness is. I know what it is to have no promise over your life. I know what that is. And so I'm very thankful every single day that I'm given room and space to do what I do. That's a beautiful moment. But if you forget, you'll recreate the chaos every day of your lives. lives. And then you'll say you're tired. And then you'll say you're miserable. And then you'll start counting everything wrong. And then you'll count all of your losses. And you'll forget about your blessings. I'm the opposite. I don't count my losses. I count my blessings. When I'm in the middle of darkness, I'm looking for the light. When I'm in the light, I'm thankful for that light. And I do recognize that light and where it's from. For there's no complaint from me. I could be sick, hurt. I could be any of those things. But even when I'm hurt, injured, sick, whatever the case is, I know what chaos is, and I'm not there. Just because you're sick does not mean you're in chaos. Just because you're hurt does not mean you're in chaos. If you forget what you've been delivered out of, you're going to go right back into it again because you're going to recreate the conditions around it. People today do that. They're complaining about politics. They're yelling at one another. Why? They forgot that half this nation died to establish it. They forgot about those who were against you living free. They forgot about those who were against you being able to vote. They forgot about those who were against you being able to worship what you so desire. They've forgotten about those days. They don't even know about those days. And so what do? They complain because they cannot see the blessing that they live within now. If you cannot see that your life is blessed right now, chaos is coming for you. You must have chaos so that you can be thankful, because you'll never be thankful unless you have a moment where you can remember the darkness. Why do you think you're born as sinners, saved by grace, so that you can be thankful for what you're delivered out of, so that you will not destroy every day given in your life? This day that you occupy is a day given to you by the Most High. He decides if your body functions or if it does not. He decides that. And you know what? Today he decided you're going to live. That's what he decided. Despite what you say is wrong with you, despite your hang-ups, despite the sin in your life, he declared this day that you're going to live. You're only alive because he declared it. And what do we do? What does the vast majority of people do? They act as though they were owed this day. That is spitting in the face of the Almighty. Well, if you act as though somebody owed you this day, that's the only time you're ever not going to be thankful for it, is when you think you're owed it. When a tornado comes, when the storms come, and they wreak havoc, and they take homes, people act like they were not supposed to take those homes. No, my friend. No. Nobody was ever promised a paradise here on this earth. So if you have a relatively good day, never forget that your Father provided you this good day. Your jobs, that person that was talking about giving to the local church, do they have any idea how fast, how many things could happen to them that they could lose their job in a heartbeat? A lie that could be told that everybody would believe. They could be fired over the smallest things. Do they not understand that in today's world, optics are everything, and how you look, you can be an embarrassment and not even know about it and get the hatchet, get fired? But you're not. And you still have income. Who allows you to have that income? Your Father in heaven. The Father doesn't demand anything from anybody. Once a person realizes, wait a minute, the only reason I can smile today is because the Lord's grace and mercy is upon me. That is a purposed action. That means he looked at you today. He declared upon you that you would not be in chaos. You have government income as the same thing. Do you not realize how many things can go wrong with government forms, with the allocation of funds, with false reports, with name changes? The Lord enables. He enabled you to live the way you're living today. If you think you're just not living too well, stop comparing yourself to everybody else and be thankful where you are. Stop everything and be thankful where you are. If you have one complaint in your life, you're spitting right in the Father's face. You're rejecting his grace and mercy. You're complaining about the light that he has shown upon you this day. That's what you're doing. See, I know what it is to lose everything. I'm trying to help you all not to go that. You don't have to lose everything to be thankful. Why does a person have to get near death or in death itself to be appreciative for the life they have? None of you would know it, right? But I'm a combat veteran. You guys know what that means? You know what a combat veteran is? That's somebody who's been injured multiple times. In my case, multiple injuries. You know what that means? That means discomfort. That means that there's really no comfort. Do you ever perceive that? Anybody ever perceive that? No, you don't. You don't. God knows I've had tons of losses. The only thing you perceive is that I care a whole lot. You don't perceive anything else. Nothing. Do you know why? Because I'm thankful. Because I know despite any condition I'm in, it could be far worse. Far worse. Far worse. Your condition can be 1,000 times worse than what it is right now. See, I know nothing is owed to me. God doesn't owe me anything. I owe him everything. I'm a sinner saved by grace. Without Christ, I am filth compared to the Father. With Christ, I am accepted by way of the blood. I am adopted. Without Christ, there is a separation that no one can undo. With Christ, there is a unity I'll never betray. Why do people always have to be immersed into death itself to begin to realize that today they have life? If for some it must come, you, each and every one of you, will determine what comes for you. You will determine that. It's going to be based on your true appreciation. Because if you can't appreciate all those things of the Lord, get yourself ready. It's coming for you. It must come for you. And it will absolutely come for you. Because you'll lose your soul if you continue with complaints in your heart. And the Lord loves you. You know what that means? He's not willing to lose you. So he's going to do everything to keep you. And if it means you have to be immersed in death itself, 1,000,000,000 times worse than you ever thought, then so be it. Because eternity is a long time. And he does not want you condemned. See, that's not some act of cruelty. That's an emergency. That's an act to save your life. You will determine the depth of chaos you're going to be immersed in. You will determine that. And no one will escape that. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Once a person realizes, wait a minute, the only reason I can be partly functional it's because of my Lord, you'll say thank you. When you really believe that, you'll say thank you. When you absolutely embrace that, you'll become emotional behind that thanks. And when it's embedded in your soul, a thanks and a praise in your soul, you'll never betray it. The Lord wants us authentic. He will do the work behind it. That's why in the Bible it says, we glory in tribulation. That's why he says, don't think it strange when you go through fiery trials. In other words, it's common to those the Lord loves. When you come out on the other end, you will not be the person you are now. Not when he's done. You'll be truly thankful from the heart. You won't have to ever fake it to make it. You'll be thankful in truth. You'll have a heart like a child concerning the Father. But you'll stand up like David for the faith. You'll take pleasure in obeying the Lord. It will never be a task again. Somebody asked me one time, they said, isn't it hard to stay within obedience? I said, no. It is never hard to do what you love. It is always a task or a job to do what you don't love. When you do something to make ends meet, that's a job. When you perform your passions, that's living. That's when you live life. When you develop a passion for people that you can do anything and everything for them, and that's bound in righteousness, well, then you know what it is to have all your works tossed back in your face. You know what Satan's like. Those of you who know what Satan is really like, you'll never give him space in your life. You'll not allow a complaint to enter into you because you know where it's from. You'll never let anybody cause you to question the Lord your God. And everything God wrote, all the laws and everything people see as rules, that they're not laws and rules to you. They're your family standard. It's something you have joy in operating in. It is never work. It's never tiring. Never is it tiring. When's the last time somebody got tired of smiling at a child that they truly enjoy? You don't get tired of that. You only get tired when you're faking it. You get tired when you're doing something you don't want to do. You don't get tired when you're doing the very thing that causes you to be alive. If we forget what the Lord has delivered us from, that's when we curse the day we live in. Murmuring and complaining is the reason they spent 40 years in the desert, so that the people who murmured and complained due to their lack of faith would die. They had to die because they were polluting everybody else, and they would not stop. They would not stop their complaints. They would not stop their murmurs. And so a whole generation had to die, and they could not enter into the promised land. That's why they went around in circles for 40 years. Now, the ones who were faithful, guess what they did? You didn't hear them complaining. They were encouraging everybody else to stay obedient unto the Lord. That's what they were doing. The ones who had a warlike mentality complained and they murmured, and everything was wrong, and they started to question their own path. They couldn't step foot in the promised land, because anytime you murmur and complain, you're not believing. You're not trusting. You're not. See, here's what I perceive. There's been a big mistake in the body of Christ here on this earth, is that people continue to tell other people what they should do. But what you should do is this, and you should do this and do this for God even when you don't like it. No. Because God, he already said that didn't work back in the Old Testament. So here's a new method. It's called truth. It's a crucible. You will go through it. See, if you have a problem identifying that you're alive, the Lord's going to remind you by way of truth. He does everything in truth. Everything. Have you noticed in the New Testament? In the Old Testament, there was an obligation. In the New Testament, no, that's your response to him. Can't you see what he's done? He's raising up sons of the living God. That's why the standard is alive. Back then it was not alive. Today it's alive because of Christ. Christ. What do you think I tell you guys don't do? If you give spiritually, I don't want anything you have unless you give it spiritually. It's my mandate. I don't want anything you have. You have to be moved in truth to do that. Unless I don't want it. I don't want it. Because it's not being sown in truth. It's not. It's not mine. It's for the Lord's work, yes. It's not mine. But then guess what? Guess what happens when you give with a reluctant heart? It's like not giving at all. That means you don't even realize why you're giving. You're just trying to meet some kind of standard without having any knowledge of what it does. That's almost like saying you're trying to obey the Lord, but you don't know who the Lord is. How could that? Is that going to happen? No. Once you know who the Lord is, it's your pleasure to obey. See the difference? You see the difference? I don't agree with the world and their methods. They like to run things like corporations. That's the exact thing Jesus spoke against. What do you think the Lord said? He did not accept the burnt offerings, even of his own people. Did you know how they did it? They did that just to get it out of the way. They did that to appease him. Then the two examples in the New Testament, where Ananias and Sapphira held back a quarter of something. They didn't have to give anything if they didn't want to. It was theirs to do with as they pleased. But what did they do? They tried to meet a standard with crooked measure. The Lord doesn't want anything from anybody that's crooked. He does not need money. God doesn't need money. The act of giving your first fruits is your gift to the Lord. It's written that he loves a cheerful giver. That means you're excited to give unto the Lord's work. See how that is? He doesn't need your money. He doesn't need your money. That's not what that's for. He doesn't need your money. Back in those days, that was to take care of his house. That there would be meat in his house. And did you read all of Deuteronomy? Did you read all of that? They would have a feast at the place where the Lord God chose to place his name there. Everybody would partake of what was bought there. Everybody would partake of it. So the Lord has a principle. You ready? When you do that, the well is going to fill up. There's going to be a word for everybody in that. When you do it the right way. You do it the fake way, and if anybody receives it with false measures, the well is going to dry up. The water is going to be stale. Let me tell you something. The water the Lord has is not stale. That is living water. You know what that means? If you ingest or partake of living water, it will make a difference in your life. All the time. You drink stale water, you're going to go stale. You're going to become lifeless. You're not going to grow. You're going to go backward. You're going to look like you meet the standard, and you're going to be dead inside. Who in the right mind would want, I don't care how a person looks on the outside. I'm looking for that person on the inside. Our obedience unto the Lord is the exact same way. It's named obedience, that's what we understand. But to obey the Lord is a pleasure. It's an honor. It's something that you look forward to doing. It is not a task. Remember something. When you don't love something, that's when it's a task. When you love something, it is not a task. And you never get tired of it. People don't get tired of what they truly love. They only get tired of those things they don't love. When you love something, you never get tired of it. Do you guys remember when you had that first person in your life? Listen to me carefully. Yes, I'm going to use it because you guys went through it and I have to communicate to you. There was a person that came into your life. And that one person, you would do anything for. You remember that? It was a feeling you had. That person may not be in your life right now. My point is, you have this experience. You looked at this person and something jolted inside of you. And you would do anything for that person. I mean, anything. When I say anything, you would have embarrassed yourself for that person. If it was going to be for that person, you don't care what the world thought at that point. Do you guys remember that? You didn't care what the world thought. That's how you knew. That one person had you in a mindset that the whole world could have rejected you, threw you away, abused you, and misused you, but so long as that one person was there, you'd be okay. You knew that. All right, listen to me. Your relationship with Christ, do you not know that Satan tried to damage that true relationship with Christ that you're on your way to? Through that issue, through that circumstance. Let me tell you why. That person that you were willing to do anything for, do you not realize you can have that same thing with Christ? Think about that for a second. Just think about if you had that same feeling, that genuine love for Christ. Listen to me. That it didn't matter what the world turned into. It didn't matter what the state of your anything was, so long as you had your relationship, you were okay. That same feeling you had for that person, that same jolt you had in your system, do you not realize that exists with Christ? And you're only a step away from it. See, many of you are not there yet. I'll say many of you are not there yet. You're trying to talk yourself into being there, but you're not there yet. See, this is something that you can never talk yourself into being. This is something that will either be or it will not, but it's going to be genuine. You're one step away. You know that. One step. Now, you all know that was a very real feeling back then. But you also know that you aspire to have something like that with Christ, but it's not there yet. You're a step away. You're a step away. Satan tried to spoil the whole thing. Because let me tell you something. When that moment hit you with Christ, you're not going to be who you are now. You won't be. You simply won't be. You won't be. The change is so drastic. Everybody around you will seem like they don't know you. Some will be afraid to talk to you directly. But that change will come. I'm reminding you of something. It's not going to be some moment that people cause. No, this is going to hit you like a ton of bricks. And it's going to be 100% authentic. I want you to be reminded of that. This is a real thing. This is not something you rehearse and just go along with it and all this. No, that's not what this is. It's real. See, there are too many people who are detached away from the realism of that relationship. But it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It is my hope that I'll assist in that moment for you. Notice I said assist. I'm not going to orchestrate it. No. That's going to be on the Lord's time. It's not going to happen in some ceremony. It's not going to happen with some special talk either. No, it isn't. But I know you're one step away. One step away. It is to be acquired. It is to be real. I'm just helping set the foundation of certain things, that's all. But I want you to remember that authentic moment. Because let me tell you right now, even that moment will not compare to the moment you'll have with your Savior. It won't. And when that moment comes, you will never be the same. You're not going to be the person you are now. Why do you think those people in the end times could love not their lives unto death? Because it didn't matter. Their lives didn't matter. Right now, many of you, right? People start talking about the mark of the beast, and you say, oh boy, I don't know what I'll do. That comes up. That's kind of a hard subject. You'll not have that questionable mind. You won't. You're going to have perfect resolve. Perfect resolve. And it's not going to be some fake, phony thing. It's not going to be something you'll ever get tired of. It's not going to be something that you rehearsed. No, it's going to be absolutely real. How in the world could these disciples turn apostles, get crucified, and it didn't even bother them? You're going to find out. See, when that's real, when your relationship is real like that, you've already tasted what it's going to be. You tasted of a piece of that. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. What the Lord is doing in truth. It has a foundation in righteousness. It will never take place in a falsehood. Once that is established, well, that is the goal now, isn't it? And it's coming. That time is coming. It is coming. All of that is initiated with us understanding exactly where we are. See, here's another funny thing about it. That moment you have with this person, how is it that we can remember where that happened? How is that even possible? Of all the things in life, you remember that one where it happened. It's almost like you can see it in slow motion. If you really think about it, you start seeing it in slow motion. It's almost burned into you, that moment. It's almost burned into you. That was a taste. Satan thought he would get the victory by spoiling it for you. Some of you, right, after that moment came, it became the most horrible situation in your life, and you thought everything else was going to be like that. Wrong. You got a taste of something real. Something you'll taste again. The only exception is it'll be 1,000 times more potent. That's why things must be authentic. That's why. Not this phony stuff. Not one of you should lack the authority necessary to walk through this earth and plow down every piece of darkness in front of you without even lifting a finger. All darkness should be rid. You should be, you know what? You should be able to walk, and your presence should have the constant victory over darkness without you lifting a finger. That's your walk in this earth. That's a real walk in this earth. Not all this stuff for people, stuff made for TV, I'm going to say. Not that. No, the real deal. And that's coming. The real deal is coming. So do this for me. Remember, we're looking for something authentic. An authentic relationship. Not some choreographed thing. And it's, don't ever be afraid to admit you're not there yet. Don't do that. Don't do that. The Holy Spirit teaches us the truth, reminds us of what Jesus says, and shows us things about whom we engage with. I say that to let you know that somebody already knows the truth about you. And they'll still do everything they can just for you. You don't have to hide from who you are. You don't. Be yourselves and grow in the Lord. And remember, your life has been decreed this day. That's why you're alive. Remember, things can be 1,000 times worse than what they are, but they're not. Because the Lord has already decided this day for you that you would have the abilities you have, the room you have. Be thankful for that. Begin to nourish a thankful heart. And rid yourselves of that heart of complaints. Rid yourselves of that. Separate yourselves from the world in that respect. Don't emulate the world. Don't emulate the people of the world. Please tell me that. Remember that. Now, I'm going to take one more break. I'll come back and tell you guys one more thing, and then I'll let you go. What time is it? Oh, yeah, 6:46. So I'll take a short break, just a short break, just to get some water. I'll be right back in a few minutes right here at COT. All right, I know you guys, it's almost 7 p.m. Some of you guys getting ready for Pastor Paul and General Paul Bagley. Pastor Paul is a marker. Hope you guys know that. He most certainly is a marker. You know, with the Lord, you never meet strangers. Never. He is most certainly a marker. I want you guys to know that. Know this one thing. Yes, we have solar activity, but we also have an inbound wave. And we need to see what this one does. When I post the date of the wave, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to post that Tuesday. When I post the date of the wave, I want you guys to help me evaluate this wave. We're going to talk about it. Right? And on the day of that wave, it's important for me to know how you guys feel. So somehow we have to collect some type of report. Now, in that report of how you feel, the questionnaire, I want you guys to be absolutely honest. If you feel nothing, right, then check nothing on there. Right? But if you actually feel something different that day, let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Yes, it is. Well, not quite. Not quite, but it's getting close. Somebody's keeping count. That's mine. But we have a wave inbound. We do. This one we caught, and it should leave 26 ripples behind it. Every single time we've had a wave, it affects the sun. So when I put up the dates, that's why the dates correlate with the solar activity. You guys saw it last time, but because people were asking, they said, hey, he was right. You know, those times I quit posting anything. I don't want people on the internet to say I'm right about anything. I know it sounds ironic. I know some of you don't like that, right? But I don't want the internet saying that, because then they'll start noticing COT for the wrong reasons. And we can't have that. I can't have that. That makes me feel uncomfortable. That scares me. It does. That scares me to pieces. That causes me fear. Do you know why? If they say anything, they ought to say that the Lord is right. Not that some person is right. So I don't mind being a punching bag when things are wrong. But when things be, people looking at me like I'm somebody special. Don't want that. What does a ripple do? A ripple has always caused the sun to react. Always. It's caused the sun to react, and waves have always caused non-volatile materials to change. There's always some chemical change, some change in the materials of the earth where something explosive happens every single time. There are some other things that happen that are pretty consistent. I have a list of them, right? Since we started recording that back in August 17th, since that happened. Remember that first wave that came through August 17th, and everybody's like, nothing is coming through. And then when it hit August 17th, we had 2 factories explode. You guys remember that? And the sun cut up and some other stuff happened. And then it happened on the next wave, right? Ripples were behind that too. And so every time they come in, they're coming from outside our solar system. So they come inbound. But yeah, they do cause a physical effect. Here's my concern. I know that at some point it's going to cause a massive change, a massive and abrupt change in the sun. I mean, a massive and abrupt change in the sun. So you have people out there on the internet that look for data that will make sense, right? And putting things together in such a way where they'll start seeing the absolutes of what I'm talking about. So they can, because we're getting very close to some life-altering moments. And so going forward with lots of accurate data is going to be important. Some things I do is by data. Some things is not by data. Some things the Lord, He gives me. Anything He has ever given me has never failed. The data, however, has failed. I make a distinction between the two. It's an asterisk. I do that all the time. But I want you guys to know you're no different than I am. You're no different than I am. Somebody said, Mike, can you tell about what can happen? Yes, when we cover the equator moving by 1,290 miles, we're also going to cover the Atlantic. A big concern of mine is the Atlantic, right? Because that's not a hypothetical. The Atlantic anomalies, plural, with the eruption is not some hypothetical. That's a real problem we're going to have to face also. It just seems like all these things are coalescing into one big, conundrum of an issue. And so once the data's out there, I do have an understanding that people will use certain bits of this data as their own. I have no problem with that. I just ask that when it comes to this equator data, I don't want them to do that, because this is going to cause some massive issues. And you guys will understand that as time continues to go forward, because anybody who opens their mouth in a big way on the wrong platform, dealing with the equator, they're going to get more attention than what they ever wanted in life, and their life could be turned upside down. And so we don't want that to happen. It's not going to be good. It's going to become a national security topic. It's not one now, but it will become one. And a clamp will be shut pretty hard on that subject. I need to get ahead of all of it before that ever happens, so that you guys have an understanding of that. Someone says, is it true that South Atlantic anomaly is expanding? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is expanding. The Earth has actually begun a process of cracking. It has. An actual process of cracking. And I mean cracking. So. Our summary, Rick, in Revelation. Yeah, we're going to have a summary in Revelation too, guys. We're still going to have that. That's why I kept it up there. Of course, we did, when we installed the high speed, right? I had to tune the high speed. It's really high speed. And then we had to separate our chat operations from all the other operations and give it a, kind of throttle in the right direction to see how things are working. Right? So things have been somewhat tricky. Let's put it that way, especially with the website. Now with our chat rooms, no. Chat rooms work flawlessly for some reason. That's something. They work flawlessly. And so lots of people enjoy that benefit. Thank God for that. We have an uptime so far of 100%. That's unusual. You're not supposed to say 100% technical fields, but we've had an uptime of 100%. Thank God for that. Lots of people out there thankful for that. And we're going to continue to expand like that. Now, the COT stuff, because all of what I'm doing is devoted to those chat rooms so that other ministries can stay up and running, but now I have to focus on COT. COT will become the heart of another operation as we hit a big expanse for COT. I pray it goes that way. I don't want to say too much because every time I say stuff or share a plan, no kidding, every time I share any plan, then guess what happens? Everything that can happen, right? I shared a website expansion with some folks, and then one of the guys that was working with us with the code, right, tried to sabotage COT. These are spirits. That's how spirits operate. Then some unsuspecting things popped up, like taxes and some other things. There's when somebody gives you something, right, it doesn't mean you're not going to pay a dime on it. And sometimes taxes can be a bit of a burden. They can, especially when you're not dealing with a lot anymore. So, and then of course the patents are still on hold. That's the income for COT, which is not established yet. So it's looking like I'm trying to fight. So it's looking like the closest release that we'll have of one of those patents will be 2025, February 2025. Once we get that back, guys, we can hit the ground on that, right? Because then I won't, I'll be able to do a lot more. And I have two routes I go, to be open and honest with you. I have two routes I can go. I can do it myself, but I would have literally no time in COT. None whatsoever. Or, plus I may have to, well, let's say that's a complicated path. Or we can just, we can, well, we have one option really. How about that? What I don't want to do, and I'm telling you up front, is I do not want to depend on, I don't want COT operations depending on any donations or anything. Here's why. Because I know how Satan works. And before I commit to something big, if I committed to something big, I already know how he works. I already know. There are people out there right now, they're waiting to start a rumor. They're waiting for something. And they're trying to do it already, but they're waiting for something. So everything can fall apart. That's how they work. Right? I know it's not good on my part to operate like that, because everything we're doing is by faith. Everything we're doing is by faith. Right? But that's just the way it is. That's why I have such a heart for pastors. That's why not one pastor out there should ever have to ask for a thing. They shouldn't, because they're putting in some time and some work, and I know how that can be, right? And then to turn around and have folks scrutinize them, especially when you know certain pastors who pour out more than you can believe. They do. They pour out a lot. They pour out a lot. If you knew the backstory of certain pastors, you'd never look at them the same way again. You wouldn't. But they don't want your sympathy, right? That's not what they're there for. They're not trying to garner sympathy or anything. They want to do the work of the Lord. That's what they want to do. And they're doing it. So, but people should just operate by the Spirit more. If you operate by the Spirit, you're going to know things. Nobody has to tell you anything. You don't have to coordinate things. Things that happen spiritually, right? They're going to be right on the money. Right on the dime. And everything will go forward then. Right? Because the Lord knows what he's doing. Now, can people halt a ministry? According to the word, they can. God puts the pastor in the people's hands. He does. He'll put the pastor in the people's hands. So if you guys are out there and you have your organizations out there, He will put you in the people's hands. I'll tell you right now, I'm uncomfortable with that. I personally am uncomfortable with that. I am uncomfortable with that. And the reason I am is because I don't want to, I don't want to, I want to do things for people. I don't want people doing anything the other way around. I need to pour out to people. I don't want to take away from people. And probably it's because of most of the unfortunate things I've seen over the course of my life. I don't want to take from anybody. I want people to receive things. So I have an issue with that. I'm no good in that area. I'm just no good in that area. I've told you guys that before. That's why I don't talk about donations and stuff like that. I'm no good in that area. Right? I'll suffer and still say, yep, sure, I'm good to go. That's just me, because I don't want to take from people. But pastors can't be like that. They can't. They cannot. This is different here. So you guys remember that. Pastors shouldn't have to ask for anything. They really shouldn't. People operate by the Spirit. Then there you are. There you are. Mike, the targets you mentioned to Pastor Paul from your dream was the third one, the UK. I got a map here in COT. It'll be in the KD files. It'll show up in the KD files. You can't miss it. It's map 37. That's the name of the map, map 37. You won't miss it at all. It's named map 37. Listen, it makes no strategic sense. It makes no strategic sense. It doesn't. I looked at it. It doesn't. Is he on right now? Okay, guys. Well, I got to go. I don't want to interfere with Pastor Paul. All right? We're not in competition here. Nobody's in competition. I'm going to say God bless you guys. I'll probably speak to you guys possibly later on tonight to track some more things, okay? Somebody says, will California fall off the map? From what the Lord gave me, it will. Yes, it will. But I wouldn't make any moves just yet. Understand the whole situation first. Right? Please understand the whole thing first. Does it make sense for China shooting up artificial suns? They're making artificial sun. And we're helping them do that. So are all the other countries. I'm going to see you guys in a few. God bless you. We'll see you guys next time right here at COT.